Welcome to the Spawn Chunks, episode number 366, recorded Monday, September 8th, 2025. This is a podcast all about Minecraft, and you can find it on all of your favorite podcasting platforms, including video versions on YouTube and Spotify. If you're enjoying the show, please consider subscribing wherever you're listening to this. My name is Joel Duggan, and my puzzled friend with me today is Johnny, also known as Pixel Riffs on the internet. Hello.
Hello, yes, I have been puzzling my way through various jigsaws, and Joel has been puzzling his way through the Soundwave Transformers Lego set. If you're interested in hearing more about that, you can check out the Render Distance. That's the extended version of the podcast that goes out to Patreons who support us at patreon.com/thespawnchunks. We now upload the full video version of the Render Distance to Patreon as well, so you're getting some extra added value, and we're finding a bunch of ways to augment and upgrade our Patreon stuff, especially as a thank you to everybody who was able to support us with our recent 7-year milestone for the podcast. So look out for those. Annual memberships are now live. We also have our monthly hangouts where people can come and share what they've been up to in Minecraft that month, and we'll have a quarterly hangout coming up at some stage where we go into all of the behind the scenes stuff about the podcast. So all that and more is at patreon.com/thespawnchunks for you if you want to sign up and support us. This week, as the Copper Age draws ever closer, we're going to be discussing the latest snapshots. We have listener email about the Minecraft experience, a real-life Minecraft thing that you can go and do with the kids, and also we're going to chat about moving on from big projects, as Joel has recently done from West Hill.
Before we get into all of that, a big shout out to several of the patrons that have moved on to the annual subscriptions. I think there was at least 6, maybe even as close to a dozen people that decided to say, hey, you know what? I really like the Spawn Chunks. I'm going to subscribe for a whole year. And so thank you very much. It's a really cool boost of confidence, and I think speaks to the community around this show. And we both really, really appreciate it. And Johnny, what have you been up to in Minecraft this week?
Well, this week I haven't had as much time to play Minecraft as I normally would. I've been streaming it mostly because we got family visiting, and so I have done the inevitable with the Copper Age on its way. I have started digging out a large room below the Windy City for my copper aging facility. This will be a repeat of some of the designs I have done previously. As far as I know, at least, I've been toying with the idea of changing up a couple of things about it, but I'm not really sure entirely how that looks yet, like being able to automatically harvest copper at the end, probably with like TNT or something like that. I'm hoping to figure out ways of doing that. So for now, the plan is to build David 6.5 because there is one small change I want to make from David 6.0, which is the version I did a big tutorial for. This is a design that separates all of the copper out so it ages as fast as it possibly can. Everything is 4 blocks apart or more, and in massive rows. It can age a full chest, or a single chest at least, or a full shulker box of copper all at once, and is about 220 blocks long by 180 wide, so it's a really, really large thing. It requires a lot of expansive space. But the one thing I'm going to change from the design I have in Creative right now is that chiseled bookshelves are much better at providing the comparator signal readout I need than furnaces are. Previously, I had a comparator that needed a signal strength of 6 to shut off another comparator until the copper was done aging and items made their way into a dropper, and that triggered the rest of the circuit to eject the copper again. That was done with a furnace with a shovel in the a shovel in the input slot, so that it didn't process at all when I put some fuel in, and 5 sticks in the fuel slot, and that produces I think with the minimum amount of components, a high enough signal strength that it will shut that off. The difference now is that with just a little bit more investment of wood and a lot fewer furnaces and a bit less interaction, you can do the same thing with chiseled bookshelves. All you need to do is place a chiseled bookshelf in the same place, add a book to the 6th slot on the bookshelf, and then take it out again. So you don't even need to leave the book there because it's the last slot it was interacted with, not the last,
neat.
not like a capacity thing. That means I could just go around the entire thing and, using the bookshelf as a key, adjust all of the different comparator signals at once. The cool thing about that is it also makes it adjustable on the fly, so that if I only wanted to measure 3 stages of copper aging instead of all 4, then I could set the bookshelf to a different book, and I could go around tagging all of them as signal strength 4 instead of 6, and that might only work for 3 shovels instead of 4, and that kind of thing. So there's a bit of optional customization that can be thrown in there and is a lot easier to interact with chiseled bookshelves. So that feels like enough of an upgrade that I think a decimal point release of David is in order. But yeah, I think 7.0 would have to be, something that drastically impacts how I add copper to it or collect it at the end, because those are the only aspects of it that aren't more or less fully automated at this point.
Is there any potential for copper golems to be used either in the addition or subtraction of copper from the system?
I was hoping so, but I think the only way you could really do anything with them is if you are then depositing fresh copper blocks into a series of crafters, and then the copper golems sort the output. So if I wanted them to automatically craft things like chains, lightning rods, stuff like that, and have all of those output into a single copper chest, which the copper golems could then sort, and then maybe that could be left somewhere for input into the system so that things could age naturally. Maybe I could do things that way, because some of them, especially if they require copper ingots, you can't get them pre-aged the way you can if you want to make like cut copper. You can just put a copper block of any age into a stone cutter and it comes out. Same with copper grates and chiseled copper. You can get those at any stage, whereas things like chains, copper lightning rods, trapdoors and things like that, all of those need to be aged from scratch because you can't make them out of the copper blocks. They require copper ingots. And so, yeah, maybe we could do something with copper golems there. The problem is they can't really realistically be used to either place or collect the aged copper blocks, because those are all just going to be done, using hoppers, and placing stuff you have to do manually as a player. So I can't really do a whole lot with them outside of that. But I can think of so many other ways that I can use copper golems that I think it'd be the icing on the cake if they were involved in this. And I might even have some walking around in the background as though they are maintaining the machine, even though they probably wouldn't have any function.
Yeah, we've talked before about having a loop set up where like a copper golem is picking up an item out of a chest and just walking to the other end of a room and putting it in there, and it just keeps them walking back and forth, or has them have an interaction. Maybe it looks like they're oiling the machine, or like tweaking gears, like keeping things up and running. Refresh my memory how David works. You have to place the blocks in a flying machine and then they're distributed. And then how are the blocks collected? Like they brought back to the middle by a flying machine and then you have to mine them out?
Yes, it's basically all done by flying machines from the point when you place the blocks. So you put together like a whole pad of I think it's a 8x9 of copper is about how much it can move at once. And then a big flying machine takes those two lots of little flying machines, which split it up into individual rows. Those go down like two at a time, down these sort of long rows of machines that pull blocks off of the long sort of thread of them that's being pushed by the central flying machine. And then the same flying machine returns and collects them once they've all been ejected by the circuits on either side. So you put fresh copper in, and after a while, you get aged copper out, and it's all fully oxidized. The main thing here is that now I can chunk load this using ender pearls as well. So it no longer needs to be a situation where a player is AFK, because random ticks are what ages copper, and those only used to be active in a radius around the player, whereas now they are active in any loaded chunk regardless of how it is loaded. So I could do that with ender pearls, I could do it with a network of nether portals, I could even force load chunks if I wanted to enable admin commands on the survival guide, which I don't. So I will come up with other in-game solutions of doing that, which would work for people on multiplayer servers as well. And I think it'd be a fun way of having that stuff constantly going in the background and supplying copper, which is why I'm more interested now in trying to work out some automated collection methods for it. It is even possible that I could place a lot of copper, have like a massive cube of it somewhere that gets kind of pushed down and collected by the next row of the flying machine, and I could come up with a couple of different ways where I could load it with a lot more blocks and have it automatically shuffled around in future. But at that point I might as well redesign the entire machine to work slightly differently because of all of the extra space it would take up and all of the extra flying machines that would probably be required. So yeah, I'm sure there are lots of other ways of doing it that are similarly efficient, but I'm so proud of this thing because it's mine, and that's why I keep coming back to it the way that I do.
Oh, it's an impressive design, man. And it looks so cool. A little bit behind the scenes for people that don't know, I use a template every week when I make the show notes on thespawnchunks.com. And when I made that template was around when you had completed David for the first time.
Mhm.
So the placeholder images for Johnny's login section are a bunch of images from David that ultimately get replaced with, this week, images of David.
Yeah.
But previously would be images of like other things that you've been working on in Survival Guide or, miscellaneous Minecraft stuff. So I'm curious because I see this every single week that I do the notes, and I really, really like the look of it. You've dug out a space underground, but one of the screenshots from your creative world is from like a higher vantage point. Do you have any plans to like create like a viewing floor or some sort of way that you can walk around David and look down on it and see it working?
I think definitely. I don't know what shape that's going to take right now, and I'm working with the dimensions of the underground area of the Windy City, where I actually want there to be like a subway system in there. Like I want there to be a little bit of transport that's sort of canonical to the city itself, but then below that, I want there to be this kind of factory floor of all of the copper aging. And I'm dealing with having to dig out such a large area by hand that I'm using a beacon and I'm working in the stone layers. So I've started this around Y, I want to say like 24 or 28, sort of a higher coordinate, because I know once I get down below Y8, I'm going to start encountering deep slate. So I've left myself a little bit of headroom, and I think there's going to be plenty of room there for, maybe glass fractures in the ground to show like a view down on some of the machinery. It just depends how I want to incorporate that into the way the city is built and stuff like that. So I'm leaving myself leeway to do a lot of that, but it's going to be a big project underneath a big project. So we'll see how things work out and what ultimately ends up happening. I do like the way it looks. It kind of reminds me of like a microchip sort of thing, like a computer component sort of writ large in a Minecraft sort of scale. So yeah, it's the closest thing I've done to making something like a redstone computer in this game. So I think I want it to be visible in some form. It just remains to be seen how I do it.
Awesome. I mean, it's such a cool project to incorporate into the Windy City, especially because like it's what's functional for all the copper you want to use in like a steampunky type build, but then also like it's such a cool technical thing. Like it's very rare in Minecraft that your very modern looking machine type farms or contraptions end up being something that you can work into what you're doing, as opposed to hiding them under something or in something, like having a slime farm in a castle, or like hiding an iron farm inside of a village or a build or something like that. And so many times we see people hiding these things, so it's kind of cool to have it be incorporated into all the different plans that you have.
For sure, yeah. And because it's not mob-centric either, it doesn't feel like it's sort of inhumane in some sort of weird way. It's not like having an iron farm that's constantly like destroying these creatures that are being created or whatever. So yeah, I feel good about having this thing under my feet 24/7. But that's me, at least. That's all I've got done is just dig a big hole and think a lot about copper aging. What's new with you on the Citadel?
So I decided to stream the move from West Hill to Southport. As I discussed, that was where I was going to go on the server, and that's the modern city zone on the server. For people that are not familiar, just think your average modern looking city with roads and apartment buildings and cafes and things like that. And I decided to move there because it's pretty central on the server. It's not Dartmouth Meadows, which is packed with other builds from other players, and my little cabin and barn just do not have the capability to house what I currently have moving around with me now in terms of shulker boxes and things. And the city, while very much unfinished and a work in progress, does have a lot of infrastructure. It has a big bulk storage under the bank. It's got shulker boxes down there as well for extra load for trees and stone and things like that. So you can very easily grab a shulker box full of something and then take it with you in the city. You can also, there's a smelter, like a super smelter. There is a concrete maker, two of them actually. There's the manual concrete maker where you kind of just sit there and mine it out as it gets funneled into a chest. Or there's also a TNT based concrete maker when you need a lot in a short amount of time. And that's inside one of the apartment buildings that I'm currently living on top of. So that was fun to kind of move there and get that sorted. And as a, I guess, spin-off from that, I decided to make a portal to the modern city be a little bit more, I'm not sure what the word is, complete. If we're going to be going back and forth to the modern city a lot, then we will need to go through the command block portals. We've got this world hub where you're teleported several hundreds or 1,000 blocks away to the modern city, to the medieval zone where Westell is, to my new area, all that kind of stuff. And I've been flying and gliding down to the modern city, but to get up, you have to like swim a river, jump up a bank. It's too close to the nether portal to use a rocket because you overshoot it by a country mile. So I decided to just put in a staircase. So mere days after leaving West Hill, I found myself building in like a medieval style because everything around this area is like stone plinths and stone portals. And I do think that the main area is going to be revamped, like this main hub area with the center of the world and the nether portal. Like I think we're going to have to move things around a little bit. I don't know exactly what that looks like. We would be limited as to where and how we can move it because the nether portal itself is tied to a very established nether hub. So that nether portal in the overworld only has so many places you can move it to connect to the one that's currently in the nether. And I don't have any ideas. I don't know whether I want to build it underground. I don't know if I want to build it on top of the ground. I know that what we have there is definitely temporary, but I am going to be using it a lot, so I wanted it to look good and I wanted it to be easy to walk up and down. And also, there's a number of people on the server that don't have elytra, so it's nice for them to be able to walk around too. So I did that. And then the last thing I did was I went in and I found or refound, I guess, my location for the sci-fi zone that I've talked about a number of times on the server. And I've got some screenshots to share of the Mushroom Island. And when I say this thing is massive, like this Mushroom Island, I'd have to measure it. It might be as big as the entirety of West Hill, including the valley and the farms. Like this island is just massive. There are coral reefs nearly surrounding it. I want to say almost on all sides. And in one of the screenshots, I've circled them. In the top right, there are 2 ocean monuments very close by. And I don't think they're close enough to both of them be loaded by the player if you stood in between them. But it would be easy enough to get at least one Guardian farm going near the sci-fi zone. And those tend to be things that are decorated in a very kind of futuristic way. There's a lot of glowing lights and things. It looks cool with the water. And you can also imagine things like, using a force field to hold the water back. And like there's all kinds of just imaginative designs that you can come up with for decorating a Guardian farm. It's also been a really long time since I've made one. The one that we have on the server is okay, but I'm not often in that area. So it's kind of slowly being depleted over time. And it would be fun to try and do that kind of stuff again. Inspired very much by our last Minecraft Hangout in August, when we had a number of people that had done Guardian farms and ocean draining projects and things like that. So we'll see what comes of it. But I'm excited about the new area. And this Mushroom Island is just huge. There are ravines. There are lush caves in a certain section of it, which is a cool thing to see, like the azalea tree in the middle of a Mushroom Island. You're like, oh, this could be very cool. Some of them are deep. Some of them are larger than others. I haven't explored a lot. I just kind of like dropped down a little bit. I have not seen any indication that there's any dripstone caves. I really hope there are, because that saves a lot of digging. If I have any underground projects that I think, oh, this might be a really cool like reactor room or something cool underground, it would be nice to not have to dig out the whole thing. So we'll have to see. But I'm in the process of trying to figure out where I want to set up shop. I know I should probably approach it as like this will be your temporary staging area, but I'm trying to figure out like, what can I do to live there and make it look cool? Because of course I don't have to build a shelter because there's not going to be any mobs spawning. So I can just kind of do whatever I want, which is great. But I want it to be thematic. Like I want to come up with some sort of cool excuse to like make like maybe a transport room or something, because we use command blocks, as I mentioned, where you walk up to a portal and you have to click a button. Like Redstone has to activate the command block in order to teleport the player to the new location. And those locations can be changed very easily. So I can move where you arrive on the Mushroom Island, no problem. But I was thinking like it would be really neat to kind of set up some sort of Redstone like teleporter pad or something. Maybe I could use skulk sensors or something where I don't have to press a button. Like maybe you have to do a certain thing, or you have to touch a thing or touch a note block, and I could use a resource pack to like change the note block sound to something that sounds kind of digital, and then have something that sounds like it's ramping up. So even just before the show, I was thinking about like, what could I do to, instead of having it just be like a press a button and you're instantly teleported by the game, have it be something where you press a button and it sounds like something is spinning up. You know, it sounds like some sort of device is like whirring to life, and then after a couple of seconds, you're teleported. And all that means is just they have to delay the activation of the command block by however many ticks or seconds or whatever. So it's going to be a cool redstone project. I want to incorporate a lot more redstone into the sci-fi zone, so I've got some homework to do because I'm rusty. And there's a lot of new things in the game that I haven't played with. So, but it looks like it's going to be fun, and I'm kind of, as we're going to talk about later, hesitant to dive right into the sci-fi zone, but at the same time I'm also starting to get ideas and starting to get excited. So like I'm trying to push it back until like I'm really champing at the bit to go, so that I don't just get in there and hit burnout too fast. So I'm going to bop around the modern city a bit, because I decided to live there not only because it's central, but also because there's a lot of unfinished things there, and if I walk around that stuff often enough, it's going to like make my eye twitch, and it'll be much more motivation to finish some of the things that have been started but aren't done yet.
For sure, yeah. It's cool to have a few things to bounce to, and that's also what we're going to be talking about in the main discussion this week. Is moving on from projects like this and kind of bouncing around between projects or committing yourself wholly to something new. But I got to say, it's been a while since we've seen Southport, and it's looking good. The I think the shaders that you use maybe have changed a little bit since we last saw it, and so I really like the look of the clouds in this shader pack in combination with the very clean modern style that you've gone with here. I feel like that sort of, it almost feels like a separate game with its own aesthetic once you've got these kind of like effects in here. But the coffee shop like logo at the front is still a delightful piece of pixel art. Like, that just makes me happy to see. And yeah, honestly, I think the Mushroom Island is really exciting. I think this probably looks a little smaller than the one I have in Survival Guide, which for me is absolutely huge. So I think you're going to have plenty of room to build there. And after you've taken down all of those mushrooms, you might even have over a stack of mushroom stem, which anybody who knows how hard it is to farm mushroom stem is probably going to appreciate that joke. But yeah, it's an absolutely enormous space, and I imagine you'll find plenty of things to do in there, including, if it's a sci-fi theme, have you considered going like the cartoon alien thing and like abducting some of the mushrooms, having them like, you know, mid-air on some sort of tractor beam or something like that? Because I could see that being the case if you start terraforming this area, especially.
Well, I definitely want to do some terraforming. Like, I want to have some different things happening. I don't know if I want to build my own alien environments. Like, on one hand, I think that's a really cool opportunity to take a lot of the cool stuff that we see in the Nether and bring it to the overworld. And with this shader pack, which is complimentary reimagined 5.5.1 for anybody that wants to know, it is something that looks very, very cool, because I did spend some time in the Nether. This is an embarrassing story that you will enjoy. I did spend some time in the Nether, and I had to fly through a warped forest and a crimson forest. And with this shader pack, like, the veins in a crimson hyphae are glowing. Like, it's like lightsaber red glow. And so to start messing around with stuff like that in the overworld and have like this Mushroom Island where it can be really dark and it will not affect my safety, and I'm not going to have creepers blow anything up. There's a chance that some mobs might spawn down below. So my idea is to maybe put some of my technical mob farms and stuff underneath the Mushroom Island, and then have more of the cool, like, dark and neon and kind of like, I don't think I want to go cyberpunk, but I definitely want to have like a No Man's Sky kind of vibe where there's a lot of bright lights and a lot of like bloom and things like that wherever I can, especially if we start to see snapshots for vibrant visuals for Java in the coming weeks. Then that'll be cool. My hesitation, of course, is that from what I remember, there was like a purple haze everywhere in Mushroom Islands in vibrant visuals in Bedrock. So if that's something I can turn off, great. Maybe with a resource pack, but because I may not want like that to be everywhere all the time. So we'll have to see how that goes. But I don't know what I'm going to do with all the mushrooms. I'm certainly going to have to cut some of them down as I build. I will be keeping the mushroom stem, as you mentioned, but I was thinking about like the mushroom tops and the red mushroom block is not something that I have ever really found much of a use for in Minecraft. But I would imagine you can use it as fuel for smelting things. I don't know.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but the other thing to remember about mushrooms is that it's a bit painstaking to do, but the spore texture is fairly usable. So even if you don't use the red mushrooms, if you just surround them with more red mushrooms and then break out all of those blocks, you end up with the spore texture, which I found blends really interestingly into certain things. It's good with like sandstone and endstone, even like a couple of the dead coral blocks if you want to have like a more porous looking texture to something, and then trigger all of the people who like really don't like textures that look like they have a lot of holes in. But yeah, there's definitely some space for the block palette to expand a little bit. And yeah, like mushroom blocks are one of those things where the red mushroom especially has a hard time looking like anything other than what it is, if that makes any sense. It's sort of like birch logs for me, where you can't help but just see the texture as it's intended to be viewed in Minecraft, whereas a lot of the time we can overlook concrete or terracotta or any of the sort of flatter textures. And even some of the logs and so forth that we use elsewhere, like people use acacia as like a steel beam because it's gray on the outside, right? So I can imagine, unless you come up with a very specific use for red mushroom, I think the spore texture might end up being more useful to you.
Cool. Yeah, and I think there will be some landscaping and biome work and stuff in this area eventually, but I've done so much landscaping lately as the finishing touches in West Hill that I definitely want to have that not be what I do right now. I'm very excited to work with bright colors, happy to have some coral reef around. I don't know if I'm going to be mining out much of the coral reef. We have a coral reef already on the server that's been used for mining, so I might leave what I have and have any kind of like underwater tubes or thing that I might do, have the coral reef be the scenery that you travel through, which would be kind of fun. But I'm excited to have a bunch of different color around for different things that I want to do. I'm going to have to figure out, a source for sand and smelting for glass, because I can see glass and sand and concrete being very heavily used. Although again, we don't have stairs and slabs in concrete, so like I might end up using something else for certain things in the sci-fi zone. But talking about concrete, one of the things I wanted to do was finish one of the buildings in South Park. And I thought, a happy gas would be really useful for this because there's a lot of high places, a lot of like repetitive, like climb up 10 blocks, finish the balcony, go up another 10 blocks, finish the balcony, like rinse and repeat. So I went looking, and I was flying around the Nether for like an hour. And I don't know how many skeletons that I found, the fossils that I found, could not find a dried gas to save my life. You know what version the server's on, Pixel Riffs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
0.5. It's on 0.5. It's not 0.6. It's very difficult to find a dried ghast when they don't exist in the version of Minecraft that you're playing on. So because I didn't need them and no one else on the server was barking for them, we haven't updated the server. It's on 1.21.5. So one of the things I have to do probably later today is update the server to 1.21.8. That's how far behind we are. And so once I get up to there, I will then be able to go get a happy gas. But like I was frustrated on stream. I wasn't like mad about it, but I was like, all right, well, whatever. We're not doing that today. We're going to move on and try something else. I think that's when I decided to do the portal designs and really sort out the sci-fi zone, was when I could not work on build anything in Southport, because I was like, I could do this without a happy gas, but I just thought it would be fun to try, like finally experience that and go get one and bring it back to the, to the modern city. Well, yeah, I have to wait until I actually have the right version of Minecraft.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you're meticulous about this anyway, but I highly recommend, in the same way I would caution people to like back up their worlds or whatever, check your elytra durability before you go looking for happy ghasts, especially if you have a heavily explored nether, because I can't remember how far out I had to go to get the happy ghasts in Survival Guide, but when I came back I realized my elytra was on something like half durability from the amount of flying I'd had to do. And so, yeah, like just weaving your way through the nether to get back to anything resembling civilization is often a long trip. And so just make sure you've topped up the durability on your elytra beforehand, because otherwise you could find yourself nosediving into lava once you've got the happy ghasts, and that's probably not what you want at the end of the day.
No, that's a good point. I was definitely conscious of that when I was flying around looking for them. And one of the things that I found really challenging, my nether is not great. There's not a lot of wide open spaces. It's a lot of very small caverns, very small transitions from Crimson Forest to insert other biome here. And it just wasn't pleasant. Like I've got some bigger spaces around the Nether hub, because of course the server is really old, and that original Nether area is like nothing but Nether wastes, because like they just the different biomes didn't exist. And so we've done some chunk trimming and stuff like that. So there are some biomes that happen not too far outside the Nether hub, but you get real spoiled when you can fly very easily from the Nether hub to the gold farm under a couple of, low bridges, but other than that, you're good. But then when you start getting out into the undiscovered nether, like, it's just a nightmare. Some of the basalt deltas are just massive. And so you're like, I can't land here. Like, I have no idea where a safe place to put down. So like, it's going to be challenging. I'm looking forward to doing a little bit more in the nether though, because I didn't go to the nether at all in Westhill. There's no nether portal in Westhill whatsoever. And so now that I'm in the sci-fi area, especially with like those guardian farms potentially nearby, like having some nether networks and stuff underneath, like I think it'll be a really good way to get from one end of the island to the other, because I can certainly put nether portals, I can have my own nether hub for the sci-fi island, which I think could be really, really cool. That's that, or if they do anything fancy with minecarts where they might speed them up, I might do something like that. But we'll see. There's a bunch of ideas percolating.
Yeah, well, I think the one thing you've saved West Hill from not building a nether portal there is being populated by zombie piglins. Because every now and then one of them will just be in my storage room, and I'm like, wait a minute, and then I realize that they come through portals every so often. So even the Mushroom Islands, I think, might not be safe from that mechanic. I think they will still, portal ticks will still spawn stuff independently of other mobs spawning.
Okay.
The other thing about the Mushroom Island that you need to be aware of, bring a bed with you, because phantoms can still spawn, because they spawn in the air. And it doesn't matter what biome the player is in, as long as you're above sea level elevation wise, you're going to get phantoms. So if you're going to build yourself some sort of shelter, that's something I'd recommend, is make sure you know where your nearest bed is.
If I've died many times in the last couple of years in Minecraft, it's absolutely been logging out after a stream, standing on top of a tower in Westhill, and then dying to a phantom because I'd been there for 40 minutes and just forgot that I don't have a roof over my head, right?
It's an easy mistake, anyway, for sure.
Yeah. Moving on to the news this week, we have a new Snapshot, Minecraft Java Edition Snapshot 25W36A and B. Both were published last week. 36A came out on September 2nd. The B Snapshot followed shortly after to take care of two common crashes. The news this week will focus on the A Snapshot. From the developers, this snapshot brings a large change to how we collect and draw block entities and particles. We don't anticipate any change of behaviors, so please keep an eye out and report anything suspicious as a bug. Thank you. New features in 25W36A. World borders can now be set per dimension. End light flashes have been updated. While the Ender Dragon fog effect is active, the flash source in the sky is not visible, and the brightness of the light affecting the world is reduced. Updates to keybinds for accessibility. Multiple keybinds with the same key assigned to them can now work together. For example, you could bind D to jump and strafe left, allowing you to jump and strafe left at the same time. The red warning for assigning the same key to multiple keybinds now appears as yellow. The spectator hotbar menu key now can be bound to another key. It is part of the new spectator category in the keybinds screen, alongside the pre-existing highlight players keybind. Changes in 25W36A. Formatting codes are now stripped from code of conduct files. Copper torch and copper lantern colors are adjusted to make them more discernible to colorblind players. Powered shelves can now only connect to other powered shelves facing the exact same direction. In any UI that allows players to type freely, double-clicking a word in the edit box now selects it. Particles outside of the player's view are not rendered anymore, which provides a performance improvement in some cases. Some technical changes in 25W36A. The data pack version is now 86.0. Adds Mannequin entities, a new type of technical entity which can only be spawned with summon commands. A mannequin is a player avatar without a connected player. Mannequins function as living entities. They can hold and wear equipment, have attributes and effects, and take damage. For more information about mannequins, check out the Snapshot changelog this week. Bug fixes of note in 25W36A. Items placed by a copper golem in a double chest do not update redstone comparators reading the right side of the double chest. Lightning strikes do not remove oxidation from lightning rods. Copper golem's pathfinding to chest is biased to the northwest. Copper golems can open locked chests without an appropriate key item. And a malicious server could force the client to remain stuck on a code of conduct screen. For the full list of bugs and other technical details, check out the Minecraft.net changelog linked in our show notes at thespawnchunks.com.
So I think with this snapshot, copper golems have officially moved up to S tier in the tier list where I'd previously put them in B tier. And it was down to all of the little fine-tuning things, the bugs, the fact that the comparator thing that you just mentioned in the bugs there was not yet fixed at the time I made the tier list. Now that they are, I do think like copper golems are fully functional as far as I'm concerned. And it seems like while there are still a couple of issues with their pathfinding, and I think some players are still going to find that they want to adapt them to their existing storage systems and they find a couple of bugbears here and there, I think it makes a lot more sense designing a storage system around the copper golems that they now function more or less as you would expect them to. Like, I certainly haven't found any hiccups in when I've been testing them out this week. And yeah, there's a few fringe cases, like the one about locked chests and key items made me sort of revisit how that mechanic works. And it's a creative-only thing, but you can effectively place a chest with a certain command that requires you to have a key item in your inventory. And it doesn't have to be a key, strictly speaking, but people always used to use stuff like tripwire hooks for this. And it's so that you can have, let's say, like a faction server or something like that, where you don't want people with full access to certain chests unless maybe they've completed a certain task or they've killed a player who had the key, and only then can you actually get in and raid the loot of the faction that you're there to attack. Or adventure maps use stuff like this quite frequently as well. So copper golems being a bypass for that is obviously a very niche scenario, but one that is likely to happen. And I always like to see the gameplay that exists outside of the traditional survival game, and it's worth noting that those bugs have been squashed as well. So I think that's really good, and I'm really excited to see how I can use copper golems in the Windy City, where I eventually plan on building like a decent-sized storage room, probably not as big as the one I have at my central spawn area, but enough to house various things for the projects that I'm working on around the Windy City, which is going to mean a lot of miscellaneous, stairs and slabs and walls and that kind of stuff, all of which a copper golem could sort very easily for me with multi-item sorting. So I'm looking forward to them immensely at this point.
For me, the UI change that allows players to type freely and double-click a word to highlight it is not something that was on my immediate list, but I'm very glad that they fixed it, because I used signs a lot in West Hill to decorate, using circles or symbols from other key sets to make it look like nails in the side of a wood paneling, or creating slots, or using signs for other decorative purposes and putting like squiggles or different characters in there to like surround something that was being held up by an armor stand and that kind of stuff. And when you have to repeat that, or you say, oh, I'm going to go back over to this other sign that I haven't waxed, copy what I have there and put it on another sign, because I've had to like, rebuild, or I've done something else on the computer where copy and paste, I've used it, in a browser or something like that. It's nice to be able to just go into a sign and double click on a word and copy it and move it. They said word in this case, but for me, it would be like a special character that you just don't want to have to go look up on the internet again.
Yeah.
It's provided you can find it. So that kind of stuff is a really good quality of life change. And I'm curious about the whole mannequin entity thing, because as someone that has several mods on the server, they're all quality of life mods. Really very few building mods. I think most of that kind of stuff would be a data pack, quality of life data pack recipes, that kind of a thing. But the mannequin entity is a really interesting idea for me, because it could be, in my mind, used as like a mob bait trap. So like if you had a data pack or a mod, I'm not sure what you would need, but if you wanted to play survival, but you wanted some sort of end game control over mobs spawning or coming up to you, the player, in your builds, then having something that they would be attracted to, kind of like a fly trap, could be very interesting if they operate in that way. I could also see RP servers and something like a Hermitcraft doing something really interesting with mannequins, where you might want to have like say you have mailboxes set up or something like that, and instead of just having a sign with a player's name on it, you have like an effigy of that player that you can then have in there. Right now, people are using player heads and things like that, but player heads on an armor stand don't necessarily look exactly like a player. You're really kind of suspending your disbelief. So if a mannequin entity could be posed, if it could be placed around the server for different reasons, with a data pack or a mod, like that could be really, really interesting.
Yeah, my first thought when I saw these was, oh great, that's something that the developers on Misadventures SMP won't have to custom code anymore. Like, they have NPCs that work on there, and obviously a lot of that is just the visual side of the NPCs. There's a lot of other stuff that's going on under the hood, but at least, yeah, like there are codified ways of doing that from within vanilla Minecraft now that just make it data packs, which means like a lot more people have access to that. And I think that's a really fun concept. I think a lot of people would recognize stuff like this from Carpet Mod, although I don't think the Carpet Mod has been used as the template for these. From what I've heard sort of through the grapevine, Nembon had nothing to do with this, which is quite surprising considering that it works very similarly to some of the sort of test dummies that would appear in Carpet Mod. But in those cases, you'd use them in creative mode to just drop them in next to a farm where a player would be required nearby to activate it. Let's say that a player is required to activate like a mob spawner or something in the vicinity, then you can't move your player away to observe what's happening with the farm from a distance, whereas if you leave a mannequin there, presumably you could, as long as the mannequin is set up to behave as a player would in terms of triggering mob spawners, trial spawners, that kind of thing. And these days the game doesn't require a player to be present for like random tick behaviors. So there are probably fewer situations in which they're super necessary for technical stuff, but I do think there's going to be ways players will find to use them regardless. And even just like as NPCs in adventure maps or something like that, you could very easily have an NPC standing behind a counter, and then you walk up to them, and even rudimentary sort of like redstone stuff linked up to a command block would tell them, okay, if a player walks within this range, trips a quiet and skulk sensor, then like print a line of dialogue in the chat that the player can see the NPC saying to them, and they can act as like shopkeepers or whatever that way. So I think there's lots that you can do with mannequins that isn't already done with things like villagers, or would require you to mod in additional characters to make it work, or just do some funky stuff with armor stands. I think it's nice to have this level of flexibility in the game for creative players.
I'm hoping that with the changes to entities improving performance, which is great, there won't be many changes to tables and chairs, the data pack that we use on the server. That's one of our few building data packs, because I just went through all of West Hill and replaced them. And I have just recently replaced some of the tables and chairs that were a wonky in the cafe that you like so much in Southport. And I don't want to do it again. So I'm really hoping that entities being changed doesn't affect that, because if I remember correctly, tables are trapdoor related, but chairs are armor stands in terms of how they're presented. Actually, they're a combination. It's an armor stand and I think a saddled pig, which is how the data pack gets you to sit in a chair, is that you're sitting on an invisible pig, essentially, that has no AI. So, yeah, I hope that doesn't change.
For sure, yeah. But it seems like we're getting a little closer to hopefully pre-releases for 1.21.9, I guess this will be, for the Copper Age drop, at least. So, yeah, I'm crossing my fingers that maybe this week or next week we'll start hearing about pre-releases, and then a release date should be just around the corner from there.
Maybe even a date for Minecraft Live.
Yes, that's another thing that's going to be on the calendar for this month or early next month that we're still unsure about. But once we have the news about that, you'll be hearing about it whenever the next episode of the Spawn Chunks comes around.
Well, we like to hear from you, our listeners, and this is where we read some email from you. If you'd like to email the show, you can send that into spawnchunkmail@gmail.com. Please keep them short and sweet if you can. It does help them be included in the show. And if you're a patron, make sure you indicate that in the subject line, because we file them differently. It helps us kind of get to important or relevant questions about the community a lot faster. And Johnny is going to read the first one.
Yes, this one comes in from Dandelion with 2 N's. The subject is Loadstone compasses and maps. Hey Pix and Joel, congrats on 365 plus episodes, and congrats Joel on the completion of West Hill. I'm a long-time listener and enjoyer of your commentary on my most beloved game. Currently in Minecraft, you can use a Loadstone compass to craft an empty map that works like any other empty map. My suggestion is that when you use a Loadstone compass to craft a map, it creates a Loadstone map that would act like an explorer map tied to the Loadstone. This would allow you to create a map with an icon marking any location, and allow the player to create maps for areas far away that they found in the past. Excited to hear your thoughts. Dandelion drowned in an inventory of unnamed compasses, banners, lodestones, and maps.
I do know what it's like to drown in an inventory. That happens quite often on my streams. I very often am full up. Even in that little build I did for the portals this week, there was over-under bets in my chat as to like how long before my inventory was completely unusable, and it did not take very long. Big shout out and thank you to everybody that's been commenting or writing in on the Spawn Chunks YouTube, on the Spawn Chunks Spotify, on my own personal YouTube VODs of the final West Hill videos. A number of listeners of the show have written in or commented to say congratulations and it's such a cool project, and kind of sent their accolades. And I really appreciate it. It's really nice to hear from everybody that's been listening to the show, sometimes for years and having never known me to do anything but West Hills. So to have an end to the project is kind of an interesting thing for people that have come in less than 5 years. I've talked about almost nothing else. So it's going to be an interesting adventure going forward. But I'm going to defer to you mostly on this one, Johnny, because I've not used lodestones in the game for anything other than decoration. And even then I find them a bit challenging. They're an odd gray. They don't really go with anything. You kind of have to use them as like a keystone or something. And I'm not sure I understand how Dandelion's vision for the lodestone map is different from the way that maps currently work in Minecraft, with banners being able to be marked in is it the loom that you can do that in? I guess a lodestone map could work like a player-made treasure map. I think that's the idea. So like you could get a map and then it would send you in a direction to say like, go to that area and dig up a thing, which could be cool for mini games, I guess, especially on a multiplayer server. But I can't think of much that I would want to do it like for my own personal use for a lodestone map.
Yeah, so the way banners work right now is you rename the banner in an anvil, and if you right-click on a named banner that's been placed in the world, the banner's name is actually retained when you put it down in the world. You right-click on that with an empty map, or a map that you're currently using to map the area, and you'll be able to see that banner on the map along with the text of whatever the banner has been renamed. The unfortunate thing about this is that the text scales dependent on how many characters are in the banner's name, so it really behooves you to keep those names short, because otherwise you sometimes end up with a really, really long thing that, depending on your UI scale, you just can't read. So it's a little bit flawed. Like, it could use some work potentially, but the thing with the lodestone idea here, I think what Dandelion is getting to is the explorer maps are the ones that you can buy from villages that mark the locations of ocean monuments, trial chambers, and woodland mansions. And so I think the idea here is that you would have a lodestone icon on the map that looked a little different to a player-placed banner or the treasure map X that you put on, natural treasure maps. And so I think there's maybe some mileage in that, in being able to, whether it's a custom icon or whether it's just the icon of a lodestone, introduce a little bit more variety to the way players can present information like that in-game. I can see the value in having a different icon, but outside of that, yeah, the mechanic explained here is not really all that different to banners being placed in the map. The other side of that being that banners will disappear from the map if they are removed from that area, and then the map is like held in your hand, so it's updated. And I assume the same would be true of lodestones, so maybe that's the way it could be different, is like if you mark it with a lodestone, if the lodestone compass connects to wherever the lodestone is currently placed, and then even if you break the lodestone and take it away, the icon remains there. So you don't necessarily have to leave any evidence of, a specific item or a specific structure. You don't have to think super carefully about where you're hiding that banner. You can just move on with the map knowing that you've got the lodestone there. The weird thing about this is that lodestone compasses can still exist even if they're not tied to an existing lodestone. You create one by right-clicking on a lodestone, but then when you break it, the compass just sort of spins wildly the way a normal compass does in the Nether or the End, where it's not really supposed to be able to chart what direction is which. And so you could very easily create, using the same crafting recipe, a lodestone map with a lodestone compass that is not tied to any specific lodestone. So how do you define that behavior? Like, there are all of these little fringe cases that you really have to think about when introducing two items in this way. And yeah, frankly, I don't know if maps in Minecraft are used frequently enough, or I don't know if this is enough of a useful expansion to them that it would encourage players to use them more as a result of that being in the game. It's a tricky line to walk, but I do like the notion of using lodestone compasses for more stuff, because they are kind of an overlooked feature as of right now. And I think it's mainly down to the fact that most players are used to either using coordinates or other quality of life mods like minimaps, like the one you use on the Citadel, for example, instead of using in-game maps, because it's cumbersome to keep them in your inventory. Lodestone compasses require you to be at a location, set the lodestone compass point there, and then use a compass to return to it, when more typically you would just take the coordinates. They're only really viable in situations where you want like an adventure map and you're not really using coordinates all that much, you're in a situation where coordinates are concealed from you, like on a multiplayer server with that level of F3 data concealed. Or maybe if you've started to customize the F3 screen in the most recent snapshots and you want to remove coordinates from that view. There is a variety of very, very minor fringe use cases for Loadstone compasses in that case, but I think there's some viability in the fact that you can use them from bundles, so you can take 12 Loadstone compasses and see all of the different directions they point in, but most of the time players navigate using different means. So the viability of a Loadstone compass, similarly to a recovery compass, I suppose, is sort of fairly minimal in day-to-day gameplay.
Yeah, I can't see myself utilizing Loadstone compasses much. The frustration that I have with maps in the game currently is they're tied to specific zones. Like you can't just map your build the way that you want. Like a little corner of your build might go a little bit into a new map, so then you have to have this entire map that's mostly empty just to capture like maybe a tower or something, unless you like map the area first and then decide where you're going to build. So like for example, if I wanted to map this sci-fi area, this mushroom island that I have, then depending on how that lines up in the map grid of Minecraft, I may need 6 maps, I may need 4, I don't know what I would need across the map to have it look right, and it might not sit centrally. So it would be nice if there was a way to map it in a way that was more convenient. We do have maps on the wall. I was reminded about this because when you arrive in Southport through the portal, you actually arrive in like the visitor information center, which I think is kind of funny. And there's a Minecraft map on the wall, and that existed before we added the mod, the minimap mod from Zero. And so we were using that, and it's okay. It still gives you that cool pixel art top-down view of a city. Reminds me of like the dinky maps I had when I was a kid. But the colors of the mini map and the world map that I use are way more world accurate. Minecraft maps don't look nice. Their colors are muddy and they're not exactly what you expect. Not that the mini map or the world map are perfect, but there's certainly a better representation I find. And as like a modern game, I kind of feel like having a map in Minecraft just makes it feel easier to use. And certainly when you're planning big areas, which has been a topic of discussion the last couple of weeks on the show, having a map mod like a world map makes things a lot easier to plan out and kind of like get a bird's eye view of what you're doing and the area. And I find it helps with immersion. Like it helps me feel like I'm in like a fantasy world or a sci-fi area or other video games that you've played that have a map. Like I really feel it helps you kind of wrap your head around the space. So I do hope that they do something with maps. I think it could be fun to have more custom things. And I know that there's cool map art things that you can do in the game, and I don't want to lose that. So like they'd have to like build on top of that and have it be something that could be iterative as opposed to like remove that capability. But changing how custom maps work and how map art works could be cool. Like you imagine for all the like resource packs that people develop and the different things, if you could make a map in Minecraft of a size that you want, within reason, like maybe it's 16 by 16 is the smallest, and then maybe it goes up to whatever you have. But if that didn't have to be specifically tied to the exact region of the map, if you could just build that map art wherever you want, then you could potentially make some custom textures, for your maps. Like I could, if I wanted to, I could do it now, but it would be a lot easier to do something like maybe I wanted to make like a computer panel or something for maps and map art in my sci-fi area. But right now it's really cumbersome to do that. So like the barrier to entry is just like, it's probably easier for me to do a custom texture pack. So I'd like to see some more flexibility with maps because I think it could open up a lot of creativity.
Yeah. One thing that we didn't quite cover here that folks in our live chat have come up with is saying that the Loadstone compass map idea could potentially craft a treasure map that other players wouldn't be able to already see the region on it, because like if a player has explored an area and you hand that map to another player, the other player still sees the same area that's been explored. So you could have a treasure map effectively that, like the other explorer maps, doesn't show you all of the detail of the topography of the area and the biomes and everything. It just shows you an icon and where your player is in relation to that. So that'd be great for multiplayer servers, especially. Unfortunately, it'd be one of those features that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for single player worlds. And so, yeah, like I think things like it's like how recovery compasses don't really make any sense in a hardcore world. There are occasionally things that just don't fit into everybody's build styles, or everybody's play style rather. So I think that's maybe something to consider when it comes to modifying maps that way.
Our next email comes from Ryan and Caden, the Minecraft experience in Toronto. Hey Joel and Johnny, this is Ryan and his oldest son Caden writing in to share our thoughts on the Minecraft experience Villager Rescue in Toronto. As Caden reminded me, I'm to keep this email short and sweet, so I'll include a few highlights. We went to the experience as a whole family with 3 kids, ages 9, 8, and 5, and varying degrees of Minecraft experience. It's a very slick setup in terms of an in-person experience using built sets and projected environments. Caden said it felt like you were playing Minecraft in real life. Using the orb of interaction, which is actually a cube, you are able to interact with various objects and areas around the room. Each person on your team got one, which helped everyone feel involved. You are shepherded through the experience, room by room, performing different Minecraft activities, from mining ore to chopping down trees to setting up village on a large touchscreen big enough for the 30-plus team members. The orb of interaction also acts as your inventory, supporting various crafting portions of the experience. I don't want to spoil too much, but we did have a great time and it was fun for the whole family. Hopefully the Minecraft experience returns next summer and is able to escape the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area for people outside the country, for more Minecraft fans around Canada. Thanks for reading and keep up the great work, Ryan and Caden. And we'll have some images that Ryan shared in the email in our Discord chat here, and of course in the show notes at thespawnchunks.com.
Yeah, great to hear from someone who's been to a Minecraft experience. I know a couple of my content creator friends went out to them as well, and as somebody who doesn't have kids myself, I doubt I'd get much out of going to one of these sort of interactive events solo, even though it seems like you're put in a group with a bunch of other people regardless. I think the London one is open until January 31st, and it's somewhere in central London. I forget exactly where, but the Minecraft Experience website seems to have a lot of details about where you can get hold of them. So if parents in the UK are looking for somewhere to take their kids for a day out, then that seems like a good option. And yeah, great to hear a little bit about the mechanics. The images that have been provided are, pretty telling in terms of the quality of this thing. It looks really, really well set up, and it seems like there's quite a lot that you can do. There seems to be the sort of a whole flow chart of activities that you take part in as you go around this thing. So it seems like it's probably worth the price of admission.
Yeah, it looks super cool. It actually reminded me of the Minecraft movie in terms of the built sets with the projected walls. Like the sets are very cartoony and very bright. And so it really kind of meshed well with all of that. And I've not really had a lot of experience with augmented reality or VR at all. So having this kind of experience, I think, would be really, really cool. And especially if you're a family that have previously gone to see the Minecraft movie, it would probably feel very similar to that in terms of Jack Black and the other characters from the movie, going around in the overworld, that kind of thing. I will let everybody know that Ryan is a friend of mine. He's a fellow podcaster, and he spoke about the trip to the Minecraft experience on the Gamers Inn, one of his podcasts, episode 659. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. And we'll be talking about it more from a family perspective on Dungeons and Diapers later on this month, which is a gaming podcast, but focused more about family related stuff, and including your kids and gaming and whatnot. So some more information there and some firsthand experience from Ryan on those two shows we'll have linked in our show notes. I think it's just a cool technical feat. I like you, I wouldn't necessarily go on my own, but I think it would be pretty fun to go with a group of friends that play Minecraft, like myself and several other server mates on the Citadel all live locally. So if there was one in Halifax, we would probably go check it out for fun, just to kind of see what it was like. Nobody has really young kids, so we would be more going for ourselves. But I also wonder how interesting it would be for taking someone like a partner or a friend as a fun outing that knows that you're into Minecraft, but they've never played. And so to experience this firsthand, I'm wondering if that would make people curious about the game, whether parents go with their kids, okay, wait a minute, my son or daughter is spending a lot of time in front of Minecraft, and I've not really paid much attention, but like this was really fun for the whole family, and I sort of maybe get it now. Maybe I'll give that a try when I go home. I'm curious if there's anybody out there that has tried the Minecraft experience that has no experience in Minecraft other than just pop culture, and has then gone on to try the game and had like good or bad experiences.
Yeah, so if that's you, obviously, like, write in, follow up. Like, it'd be really great to hear from more people's experiences of the Minecraft experience. Yeah, I like the running theme of orbs in Minecraft just being cubes as well. I think that's a really good running gag. We've seen that in Minecraft Dungeons, and the Orb of Dominance even appears in a Minecraft movie as well. So I think there's a bit of a running joke within the Minecraft crew about that stuff. But yeah, like this sort of falls short of what you'd expect from like a Minecraft themed escape room, but that's like the ideal version of this for me, is that something that like adults can go, it's Minecraft themed, but still has a lot of the mechanics of like puzzling your way out of a space, which I've done a couple of escape rooms and I always find that experience really fun, like a great way of getting small groups together working as a team. And I think the whole thing with the Minecraft experience is it's sort of a lighter version of that, because you need to get a lot more people through the door, and it seems a little bit more like sort of like an evolution of what they were trying to do with Minecraft Earth. And just more approachable to everybody and accessible to everybody, because it doesn't require you to have certain like mobile phone hardware. And obviously, like, we know the tragic fate of Minecraft Earth ultimately was just to be released at the wrong time with the wrong circumstances,
Right.
and perhaps a bit of the technology still waiting to really make it into everybody's hands.
Moving on to the main discussion this week, and moving on from big projects. That's what we wanted to talk about. One of the nice things about having a large project on a server or your Minecraft world is that you don't really have to think about what to do next. You know, whenever you log in, you're just doing the next thing. Chances are you have a cascading to-do list of stuff you'd like to finish in the area or technical things you'd like to accomplish. But when you're done with all of that, like, what do you do next? So Johnny and I thought that we would discuss some of the challenges of moving on from a large project, some of our personal experiences in doing so. Do you move on to another big project, provided you have an idea for one? If you wanted a break from what you're doing, like, how do you switch it up? Do you even take a break from Minecraft? Like, what is like that next sort of phase? And sort of kick things off, as I mentioned last week and earlier today, I've spent 5 years essentially on the server working on Westill, and that's including on the Twitch channel and talking about it here on the podcast. So like, now what? And I've mentioned the sci-fi area. I have chosen that specifically because it is a broad swing in the exact opposite direction from medieval fantasy town to sci-fi futuristic area. Both of these things are things that I love. So, I mean, my other show, The Citadel Cafe, is about that stuff. So I'm keeping within like things that are of high interest to me, but I'm also a little bit wary of moving on to the sci-fi zone too quickly, because I don't want to burn out. Like, I don't want to go to a blank canvas in the sci-fi zone and have a laundry list of to-dos that I want to accomplish. I want it to be a little bit more organic than that. I don't want it to feel too much like work, even though it is. And so I'm trying to figure out like what's the best way to transition. And I found, just anecdotally on the server, that two things have happened. I've created a large server to-do list of random things that I'm just talking about, people are asking about. It's like, oh yeah, I should fix this, or oh yeah, I should, go back to my witch farm and fix that up, or like different things that kind of pop into my head as like small gap projects. But then I also find that I'm feeling a little, not overwhelmed, it's the wrong word, but I feel like I'm being pulled in several different directions. Whereas with Westill, there were different things to do within it, but it was one direction I was being pulled in. Whereas now it's like there's the portal area, there's a farm thing, I could fix this, I could do that, I could fix the skyscraper, like there's all these different things. And so deciding what you want to do is sometimes a little bit difficult. But then also, you go into a stream, if you happen to be a content creator, or a video, and you sit down and you do something, you're like, great, I checked that off. That took an hour. Crap. Like, what do I got to do? Whereas like I would sit down to part of Westill, like the North Road or some building or something like that, it would be at least the stream, probably 3. And so like once I made a decision as to what to do next in Westill, even from a smaller section part of it, it was still the week I didn't have to think about what to do. So I found it challenging to have to sit down and go like, wait a minute, what kind of mood am I in? Like, am I in a technical mood? And if I'm in a technical mood, do I want to build something for the server, or do I want to wait and build that for myself in the sci-fi zone? And I've run into a couple of things where like, ooh, I could do that, and thought, I want to make that for myself elsewhere. And so I'm now not struggling for things to do, but I've definitely found myself making decisions and kind of like pushing things off to like where I might want to do them in different ways. So with you, when you're building something large on Survival Guide or on a multiplayer server, like how do you palette cleanse, and then how do you decide what to work on next in terms of the scale of the next project?
Well, I think you've had the Citadel for such a long time that it feels more like that's your kind of home base, and a lot of the projects take place there. I know you've done like side series, a little bit of like modded and Skyblock and that kind of thing, right? But in my experience, what I think of as the big projects are typically series like multiplayer servers, where I'll be on the server for a year or so, but sometimes a little bit less. I think Minecraft SOS was something more like 6 months. And when that concludes, I feel like the palette cleanse is returning home to the Survival Guide world. Like, I think those are the projects I can really consider done, because regardless of whether I finish the builds or like finish whatever it was that the sort of theme of the series was, coming back to the Survival Guide feels like a reset. It doesn't feel like downgrading necessarily to vanilla. It feels a bit more like, you know, easing back into the comfort of vanilla games after like servers like Empires and SOS were lightly modded, but there were still mods that tended to be some of the focus of it. Like with SOS, it was hardcore with a twist. You know, you end up having to pay for, you know, moments in which you die, or when other people die. And I think that's what a lot of players end up doing, is like they'll take a large stretch of modded Minecraft, and then sometimes for the sake of nostalgia or for the sake of just wanting to simplify things after having, you know, worked their way through the tech progression of a kitchen sink mod pack, you return to vanilla Minecraft and it feels like there's a lot less pressure. It feels like the game is broad rather than deep in that sense. Like, it feels like you don't have the super deep tech progression to go down. You get to diamond armor and then you can sort of do whatever you want. And so that's sort of how I end up feeling with the Survival Guide. Like, it's nice to come back to that, because that's the world where I can rely upon it to be there, chip away at little projects, build a new resource farm, and especially with the new cadence of Minecraft development, every 3 months there's new features to check out. Even when I've gotten stuck into a project like Misadventures and, you know, gone really hard for, like, you know, grabbing all of the rideable mounts and that kind of stuff, then I'll come back to Survival Guide and go, oh, Happy Ghasts are a new thing. Let me go and check those out and do like a couple of videos about them, explore what it's like to build with them. And now I find myself on a bit more of a Survival Guide kick, where that solo experience and, you know, building without any sort of restrictions imposed on me by the mod packs and the way we're doing stuff on Misadventures feels very refreshing. And so I think having those worlds where like little bite-sized projects can take place is what works well for me. Whereas I think in your case, obviously, that world is the Citadel, and so the big projects are happening in those places. And so maybe for you, does like a Skyblock series or a mod pack series feel like another neat way of like getting out of that world and away from those big projects and sort of blowing the cobwebs out and returning to vanilla Minecraft with fresh eyes?
If I have any escape from Minecraft, it's probably to other games. Like, I've been playing Satisfactory. I did a No Man's Sky stream on Friday because that game updated last week or the week before. And so that has been the fun escape for me and the break from Minecraft. I don't at the moment anymore really have a big pull for like a modded Minecraft series or a Skyblock series. One, having just done the Snapshot survival world I want to use this not as a forever world, but certainly as a ongoing Snapshot world. Whenever Minecraft updates something I want to test, I can use the survival Snapshot world to experience what that is in survival and talk about it here on the show. But because of that early Minecraft experience there, I don't really feel the need to start a modded world or a Skyblock world, just because I find it grindy and early and I'm kind of more end game focused now in Minecraft. And because the Citadel is, like you said, 8 years old and a long-term forever world, I see that as where I should be spending my time in Minecraft. Like I feel like not just for my own personal accomplishments, but also as a content creator, like people seem to be more interested in the server and its development. And there's a lot of, we'll say, niche audience that I have kind of carved out in that the server doesn't reset. It's not a fresh, insert this multiplayer server here season like every couple of years. It's just been the same. I say the same. It's obviously developing and changing, but it's the same world. So as I go through different areas, people can tune in for the first time and see a very developed nether, see a very developed server, know that if something happens where I need to go get some levels, like I can go to the gold farm and do it, and it doesn't take any time. So that kind of stuff, I find by staying on the server, I remove a lot of the gameplay hurdles that would restrict me from, like, if I have a really cool idea for like a sci-fi build or for something, and I'm in a modded area and I'm still early game Minecraft, I might not have the resources, I might not have, the technical capability, I might not have elytra. Like there's all these kind of things that kind of come in there. Whereas if I am on the server, I can do like day one Minecraft light if I go to the sci-fi zone with all my shulker boxes, with all my stuff, but then I'll also decide I want this to be a very technical area. I want to build my own iron farm. I want to build my own this, that, and the other kind of resource situation on a scale that works for me as a single person in this area. And so I think that that's the draw for staying with Minecraft. I do like branching out with other games, especially now with this sci-fi area. I'm definitely playing more Satisfactory and more No Man's Sky because they're sci-fi games and they're inspiring.
Yeah.
Visually for what I want to do, what kind of shape language I want. There's a lot of neon lights and glowing effects, and I'm trying to think, like, I wonder how I could do that in Minecraft and have it look pretty cool, especially now that I'm playing Minecraft with shaders on, and because the Mushroom Island is just completely empty, frame rate's great. Like it's very easy space to be in, and so I'm looking forward to playing around with lighting in Minecraft and kind of seeing what I can do there. One tip I will give, though, like for people that have finished a large project, is definitely move out of the area. Moving to Southport was a great idea. Like I genuinely like being there. It's bright. It's got a lot of like white and different colors. It feels very different than the medieval town, and it's even got like the water column infrastructure for like getting up high into buildings, and there's a bunch of different projects there. So I found that I've just started to have different ideas and have just kind of had a fresh look at Minecraft for moving into a completely different zone. And also because it's unfinished, my eyes kind of twitching as I'm there. So like I can easily finish up the white apartment building that I'm living in now. And that's, I don't want to say it's an easy project, but like the build palette is already done. Several of the apartments are already done. It's just a matter of taking that pattern and repeating it and finishing it. And then removing that kind of like constant Minecrafter apology that I mentioned, I think last week, where walking through the modern city and mentioning like, oh yeah, there's this great big building that's not finished, and having to say that every time. So it'll be good, I think, to have that. And so I think moving out of the area was great. It's a little bit strange to do it so quickly because I've got people coming in and like asking about West Hill and talking about it, and like I've not been back. Like I have no reason to go back until I run out of a resource that I have stockpiled there. I've got no reason to go. So that part has been a little bit strange, but other than that, I think moving out of the area is a really good move.
I think I will add to that in that you've been building with a lot of restrictions for a while, in the sense of like the block palette and like even the way you interact with the space. Like you're keeping a lot of fairly low buildings for the most part, and you're kind of building in a specific style. Removing those restrictions or significantly altering those restrictions, I think, is a great way. Like a lot of players will build with a specific style, or they'll like challenge themselves to build a certain way, especially in the case of stuff like Misadventures. For us, we don't have elytra on that server. We don't have access to the end. We don't have the same structures in the overworld and the nether. So getting hold of certain resources is a bit more laborious, or like there are different methods of getting hold of them, and we can't fly around. So it feels really good for me to go back to the survival guide world and freely fly around and use whatever blocks I want to and not worry about like adhering to a specific build style. And so I expect the same is true of you, of like it's very refreshing to move out of a place where you think, oh, anything I do here has to fit within a medieval world, otherwise it's going to stick out like a sore thumb. And now you can go back to a modern city where the build style is different, the mechanical rules are different, you're allowing yourself to use stuff like bubble columns because it feels like it fits more within the setting, and so suddenly you've got a lot more access to those aspects of the game you've been neglecting for a while. And I think Minecraft is now a broad enough game that you can focus really heavily on one area, whether it's building or redstone or something else, and you can suddenly realize that there's a whole other half of the game that you're not really interacting with, and you can just sort of switch on at any moment. And that's often my advice to players who feel like they're getting bored of Minecraft but still want to continue playing is, you know, figure out what you've been focusing on really heavily lately and switch that up. You know, do some technical projects, do some exploring if what you've mainly been doing is staying in one place and building. You know, go out and find some of the more interesting landscapes and odd places where structures have generated and stuff like that. And that's a really great way of adjusting from having worked on a big, long project like that to remembering what else is out there in the world of Minecraft.
Yeah, I had Gap projects as a tip, and that includes like Gap adventures. You know, like I want to go fight the dragon, like and open up some of those end portals. I want to build a shulker farm, like so. There's some resource farms, you know, and like I said, deciding whether those resource farms are going to be like a nice thing for the server to have, or is it going to be something that I want to do a little bit more on my own. Server infrastructure, things like paths and roads, nether portals, nether hubs, like are, you know, is the iron farm that you guys all made on the server connected to another hub? Is that an easy project to do, to just kind of like make it a little bit more convenient for yourself and others? That kind of stuff is really fun. You could also return to something unfinished. If that's super technical and it's been a while, then that might be a bit difficult to remember exactly how things are functioning and like what needs to change. There could have also been some Minecraft updates since the last time that you did something. Like my gold farm functions entirely differently now because I can't maintain aggro, or I have to actually physically kill the piglins in order to collect gold. So like I had to get a different sword, I had to enchant that. So there's a bunch of different things that had come up from returning to different areas in the server that Minecraft updates have broken. I had to change the location of the spawn chunks and what that involved because our iron farm wasn't working because the spawn chunks got really shrunk. The redstone chunks were down to like a 3x3 chunk area around the central spawn area. So we had to change all that to keep the iron farm working without making a ender pearl chunk loader. So like there's stuff like that you can go around and kind of like fill your time with and kind of like make your life easier down the road, especially if you have a larger project in mind that you want to return to. For me, like the sci-fi area, one of the things I think about is like, that's a lot of concrete. Like I'm going to need to build a new concrete maker in the sci-fi zone for convenience. Like it's been years since I've made one. 6 years probably. What do they look like now? Are they any different? Like what is the most efficient way to handle all of that? Because there's new materials in the game. There's new redstone mechanics in the game. Like has anybody come up with like a much better way to do it than I have in the past? So that's going to be fun. Doing a little bit of research, you know, behind the scenes and coming up with ideas for resources, but then also saying like, well, where is that best suited? Like, is that a good project to include in my next thing? Or is that like oh no, that's a one-off thing. We don't have we do have a copper farm on the server, but if we didn't, then it's like, oh, that's a really good opportunity to make one because everybody could use that. I don't need it right now in the sci-fi area, but that would be a great thing to kind of like do as a side project because it would, you know, it would take up a bunch of time, be completely different as a technical build from West Hill and kind of like fill that void.
Would you agree that it's a good idea to have an idea for what your next big project is going to be, even if you don't jump into it right away after finishing a large project like West Hill?
I think it's good to have. I don't necessarily think you have to have that. I think it could potentially be something that these side projects inspire. Like maybe you work on something like an iron farm or a copper farm, and that gives you an idea for like, oh, you know what? I've really been enjoying working all this copper, and now that I know how to get a lot of it, maybe I can do a steampunk world or something. Like maybe one of these projects might inspire your next thing, but I do find for me, like knowing what I want to do next, that it's going to be challenging has helped, because it has helped me categorize what I want to do there and what I want to do on the server, or the things I want to do to fill the time in between. And that way I don't feel like I'm building a new, a new server farm, like for shulkers, for example, only to realize I'm going to want those to be loaded all the time while I'm in, in the sci-fi area. And it's also very high on my list because I'm going to need them in the sci-fi area. So I'm going to need to build that first so that I can get shulkers as I go, and build around there. So like there's a couple of things that I'm considering in terms of like the most efficient way to do those projects, which I think you really only have, maybe not only, but certainly as someone that has done a large project, I can start to prioritize different things in the sci-fi area that I want to put off and do there, like the shulker farm, like, some other farms that I want to do, because they're going to be more useful there than they're going to be useful other places. And so having done a large project and knowing I'm going to need a storage area for bulk, wondering where I'm going to put all the mushroom, for example, like one of the first things I'm going to need is someplace to put all that, so it doesn't become out of control right away, right?
I think it's really valuable having experience like that to draw from, is where I'm going with this. Like I think there's like, to an extent, when I finished the first castle that I built in Survival Guide Season 1, I immediately wanted to build another castle because I knew how to do it at that point. And I think especially if it's one of your earliest projects that you've sort of been on the grind for a while, and you feel like you've got it to a place where you're comfortable calling it finished, you're often still thinking on that scale. You're still thinking about like, how would I approach the same project differently now that I have all of the newer features that I have, or now that I have the experience that I have. And so it's tempting to want to go into another project, or at the very least, if you don't want to burn out, if you're worried about like going straight to another big project and that being a problem for you, you've at least got the experience to go, well, when I approach my next big project, what is it that I want to do with that? How would I approach that? Learning what I've learned, knowing what I know. Eventually, it took me until Empires Season 2 to actually build another castle. But in that one, like the scale was much more ambitious because I had much bigger inspiration for it. Like I had Stormvale Castle from Elden Ring to think about in terms of what a recent castle experience had been for me. But like I took a lot of the stuff that I had learned from setting up the original castle in Founder's Forge in Survival Guide Season 1, and I think that was like instrumental to me in knowing that I could even pull off what it was I was trying to attempt. And so I think that's the same thing, is like if you've gotten used to building on a certain scale with a certain level of detail, especially thinking back to the amount of times you've poured over all of this individual details of how farms and walls and paths connecting things and riverbanks and stuff look around West Hill, you've got a certain level of quality that you aspire to bring to future projects as well, and you can already start thinking about that stuff even if you're working on sort of smaller technical projects and tying a couple of other things together in the background. Your brain can start working on, well, what's next? How do I achieve that? And, project planning can become as much a part of the process as the execution.
It's been fun to think about the sci-fi zone and not have to work on it. Like it's been fun to brainstorm, maybe write down a couple of ideas, but then not really have to break ground on that immediately. And one of the things that you mentioned, having the experience, like when you go into another large project, which I seem to do in other games too, like it just seems to be a thing that I enjoy, and knowing that is nice. But you know what it takes. So the expectations are there of like, I'm not going to go to the sci-fi area and finish this in a year. Like I know that's not possible because I just like what I do in Minecraft so much. I tend to take my time. I want to kind of like organically expand this area. Maybe it's not something that needs to be done either. Like maybe the sci-fi zone is something I work on until I'm tired of it. Something new comes out in Minecraft that inspires me to go to a different area on the server and try something else. So there's a bunch of different things that I want to kind of establish and not put myself in a situation where I feel like I then have to be in the sci-fi zone until it's finished, which is something I did feel about West Hill after a while, because I think because I had said something around finishing it last year or wanting it to be done and then realizing, you know what, I really should just wrap this up to a point. And Westhill has still got, spots where it could be expanded and roads could be connected to adjacent towns, but that becomes like the broader medieval fantasy zone on the server. And these things are never done. Like, they're not meant to be. It's meant to be an invitation to other players in the server to come and build in the area. So with the sci-fi thing, like, it's going to be nice to go and work there. Nice to have a technical hub that I can go to where all of the technical stuff in Minecraft fits with the lore of what's going on aesthetically. And then I can make that my home base, and it'll become this Mushroom Island will become my area. There's a really cool shattered savanna. There's a huge desert nearby, so other players could come and make their own sci-fi areas there as well. And that way I'll have that space to go back to for like central storage and really like a good place to have all of my stuff. Much like the big player bases that you see on big multiplayer servers like Hermitcraft. That's kind of what I'm envisioning, like when players live in an ocean monument or they live in a woodland mansion or something, and that's like their home base for the year or 2 years that they're on the server. That's kind of what I have envisioned for this. So it's going to be a great kind of branching off point. The cons, of course, of doing a large project are that you're going to be doing the one thing for a long time. So I'm trying to figure out like what smaller parts that I can start to do, so keeping it fresh and making sure I don't burn out. And I do find that the blank canvas can be kind of overwhelming. I know I've given the advice to just start, because of course you can redo anything in Minecraft, but there's something about the not knowing what's underneath the surface of the Mushroom Island. There's something about not knowing what I want to build there yet, to not know where I want to arrive. Like, how do I want that experience to be? So I think I've got some thinking to do before I get there to make myself more comfortable with breaking ground, because right now, looking at the blank island, there's just nothing but possibilities. And then you're like, well, then where do I start? And so am I going to regret putting the transport pad in the dead middle? Maybe I want it to be in the south. Like, maybe there's a lush cave that I want to explore. So I think one of the things I've got on the list, which is going to be nice because there's not going to be any building involved, is just going to be walking around the island, seeing what I can see, maybe marking some stuff, on the map or with another means to say like, hey, here's a really cool ravine. Here's a really cool bay. Like, here's a spot where you can probably see the ocean monument in the distance. Like, that kind of stuff I think is going to be key to informing where I want to start, and also inspiring the kind of things I want to build there.
Yeah, I think the most important thing to remember is always that you set your own pace when it comes to this game. Like, it doesn't have to happen like overnight. It doesn't have to happen within a couple of years. You can take breaks whenever you want to, and you can always come back to a project later. Minecraft is like that. It has no end. But unfortunately, podcasts have ends, and we've reached the end of this episode of The Spawn Chunks. So thank you so much for listening to the show. You can find more information about our show and links to some of the stuff that we have talked about today over at thespawnchunks.com. The music for the show is composed by me, and The Spawn Chunks is proud to be a listener-supported podcast. If you're getting some value out of the show, why not consider putting some value back in? You can do that at patreon.com/thespawnchunks. Joining at any of our paid tiers gets you an invite to our patrons-only Discord chat. You can listen to the show live when we record it in Discord every Monday. We also have monthly hangouts and various other patron events that you can get involved with, so check it out. It's always a good time, and there's always Minecraft discussion going on in the various chat channels. We currently have 271 patrons, so we'd love to welcome more people in this month. And once again, you can take advantage of stuff like annual memberships if you just want to make a one-time payment. We are going to be here for at least the next year or so talking about Minecraft, hopefully for the foreseeable future. So special thanks go out to our content engineer patrons who really help make this show possible. That's Hunter555, Jumbo Sale, Mindtrip Media, and That Penguin Dude. Thank you for your support on this episode.
Sharing the podcast with your friends is the easiest way to support the show. It's free to just tell a friend about the Spawn Chunks. You can find us at the Spawn Chunks on social media. New episodes are available on Mondays. There's a video version on Spotify and on YouTube, so you can spread the word and let everyone know where to find us. You can also email the show at spawnchunkmail@gmail.com. The RSS feed is on the spawnchunks.com, and the patron-only RSS feed is on the Patreon page. That's where you get the render distance, the extended version of the podcast.
My name is Johnny, but online I go by Pixelriffs. You can find most of what I do at youtube.com/Pixelriffs, where the Minecraft Survival Guide is currently in its 3rd season. I also stream 3 days a week on Twitch when I don't have family visiting, doing behind-the-scenes work for my YouTube series and playing other games from time to time. I'm also the voice of the unofficial Hermitcraft recap, which you can find through a quick YouTube search. And aside from that, I'm at Pixelriffs on both Blue Sky and Instagram. Joel, where can people find you online?
I will point people towards the Citadel Cafe, which is about sci-fi and fantasy entertainment. The latest episode, we talked about Fantastic Four and K-pop Demon Hunters. And I also am on social media as Joel Duggan. I've been posting a lot on TikTok. So if you want to see some clips from my streams from various games, as well as Minecraft, of course, then you can head on over there. I am Joel Duggan on Twitch, where I'm currently streaming at 10 a.m. throughout the week and then 1 p.m. on Saturdays. That's all Atlantic time. And I'm switching things up a bit. We are back in Satisfactory. I've been playing around with No Man's Sky and building ships in that game, which is a new thing, like building a proper like space corvette. It's been pretty cool. And Satisfactory is, of course, Transformer-themed factories. And, of course, the LEGO Let's Chat is back. So we're building the Soundwave set there. So lots going on Twitch. Check it out, twitch.tv/JoelDuggan.
Thanks for visiting the Spawn Chunks. The world outside is infinite, but what's next?